I want to use FAOff because I do feel like it's much faster. It's not bad or worse than assisted flight, but it is better for the flight adjustments and course headings. That's basically why I like using FAOff.
Could you do me a favour, Cupcake, just to demonstrate some of the differences between, or one of the main differences, at least in my eyes, between assisted flight and flight assist off? If you come to into assisted flight and you come to complete stop.
Gotcha.
And then just apply upwards vertical thrust. And just keep it held down until you reach the cap of as fast as it's going to go. And then tell me on your screen, actually let me get up my little doohickey again. I need to center my head look. So if you see speed relative to max cruise speed, which is the central bar of your speedometer, if you see there, when you're in assisted flight and you're applying your directional thrust, you are capped. I don't know, I think it's about 10%. So you can't go to your maximum speed.
Yep, I definitely can go to my maximum speed.
And you'll also, if you just go in a like opposite direction again, you'll get a sense of the acceleration speed that you're going in when you do that as well.
As opposed to when I'm gonna do it now, on the way down and assisted flight. Wait, please explain the advantages.
Now,
You're just doing that.
And now if you come back to a complete stop and then you go into flight assist off and then you do the same thing. And you notice how much faster it is when you're applying that vertical thrust to accelerate in your directional thrust direction. And you'll also notice that you aren't capped, you can go to your complete speed cap.
There I am.
So the way that the mechanics of the game works is that in flight assist off, your speed potential is greater in flight assist off in a couple of ways. The first is that your acceleration, especially along the directionals, is much faster. The second is that you aren't capped at your maximum speed when you're in the influence of gravity as well. So you can accelerate indefinitely up until you hit the ground in flight assist off when you're in the gravity of a planet. If you do it properly, then you can keep on going at a reasonable acceleration speed. So that's one of the ways in which flight assist off is exceptionally advantageous, especially in a combat situation, for being able to change your vector, because you've got the full capacity of your thrusters to do that with. If you're in assisted flight, then you don't have the full capacity of your thrusters to change vector, because the computer, I guess the rationale for it would be, I guess, that the computer that controls your assisted flight is always conserving some of your thruster potential so that it can change vector and change direction for you. Another advantage of flight assist off, especially in combat, but just as a general flight thing, for me at least, I find it as a more stimulating way to fly. Is my personal reason I do it, and I've enjoyed doing it, and I've kept on doing it. But in a combat situation, if you can detach your vector completely from your nose facing, which is what you've got in flight assist off, then it means that you can use your weapons to a much greater advantage. You've got much more control over how you fire your fixed weapons, where you place your shots, how you maneuver at the same time, so that you can keep a much higher level of evasive flight whilst you're doing that. If you're in assisted flight, then those same maneuvers become much harder to do. I'm not saying they're completely impossible, because there's definitely a lot of assisted flight pilots that can take me to task in a combat situation.
Also, for normal flight, I would say I want to learn it because it's a skill. But for combat, I want to learn it because I feel better at combat when I'm doing it. Okay, didn't hit it yet.
But that's why I want to learn it for combat also.
Yeah.
Because it'll help me bring my weapons to bear on my target a lot faster, especially with my target tracking pulses.
Yeah, that's another thing as well, actually. If I come to assisted flight and I come to a complete stop again, and I just use my absolute fast direction, you'll see that my speed of rotation in assisted flight, if I do the same thing in flight assist off, and I just apply direct absolute rotational thrust, then my speed of rotation is faster. If I come to, I'm going to come out of the asteroid field just to demonstrate this. If I come into assist flight and I set myself to 50%, I do the same thing, I just rotate like that. Then
Ooh, I'm rocking this. I haven't hit anything in a while.
congratulations.
Congratulations.
Then you'll see at 50% I have a greater movement rotational speed in assisted flight. If I do that in flight assist off, it's even greater still.
It is a matter of training, really. It is a matter of practicing.
The other thing that's different about that maneuver that I just did is in flight assist off, my vector hasn't changed at all when I was doing that. In flight assist on, my vector trailed my nose the entire time.
Yeah, that happens when you do it assist on.